Bienvenidos, benvindos, welcome all to our third edition of the Risk Reveal webinar series in Latin America in partnership with LRN Corporation. I'm Silvina Brugia. I'm Proposition Director for Emerging Markets in Refinitiv. I am very pleased to host this event today. First, I'd like to thank LRN once again in this webinar series that we are developing to raise awareness in the risk and compliance communities in the region. In previous editions, we talked about opportunities in supply chain management. We talk about the evolution of the technologies in the compliance aspects or segments. In case you miss these webinars, you can access the records in our website. Indeed, thanks all to our customer for the feedback we received. We wanted to bring together leaders from different industries to discuss ethical leadership. So let me introduce very briefly our panelists. Juan Ignacio Diaz is the Senior Vice President and Chief Compliance Officer of Siemens in the US. In his role, Juan is responsible for the overall strategic management and directions on the compliance organizations in the United States. Rubén Alvarado is the CEO of Metro de Santiago since September 2014, where he had led the constructions of new lines and driven a very aggressive operational excellence program. David Greenberg is the CEO of LRN, with great focus in innovation and expansion, the company's content, solution and advisory service. He has been part of the ethical and compliance community for more than 2 decades. If you have any question during the session for the panelists, please make sure you submit them through the Q&A chat located at the bottom of the screen. I have just very briefly introduced our panelists, but I think that as a kickoff, I can ask them to introduce their own companies, and maybe we can have the same order as I presented. So please, Juan Ignacio.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Silvina. I'm really glad to join this panel. I work for a company called Siemens. I work in the Siemens USA part of the company. We're globally a company of more than 350,000 people with around 80 billion euro revenue a year. And well, I would say that I'm really proud to work in a company that has a very strong purpose, which is serving society. And what I mean by that is that we're really doing meaningful things. And we're in the area of transportation, we're in the area of energy generation, from clean energy to transmission and distribution. We're in the healthcare sector as well. And we're doing, as I said, meaningful things because we feel that we can really fight the biggest challenges that we're facing today, like climate change, like urbanization, where we see more people living in cities, and that brings a huge challenge in the transportation system and in the energy system and in the healthcare system. And we're also facing a big globalization with a strong footprint that we need to take care of, and also demographic change. We see that the life expectancy is growing and people are living more. So we're facing a future in which we have people in our elderly arena. So that brings a huge change and challenge. And so we're working specifically to solve the challenges that come from these mega trends. And how we do it? With digitalization, automatization, basically, and electrification. That's basically what we do in those terms.
Excellent. Rubén?
First of all, thanks a lot for this invitation. For me, it's a privilege to have the opportunity to share this panel with my colleagues now. And I'm the CEO of Metro de Santiago. Metro de Santiago is the main transportation company in our capital city, Santiago. And we have mainly two responsibilities or focus nowadays. It's, of course, the operation of the network, and we are committed with a very aggressive construction and growing plan. We now operate 7 lines, 140 kilometers. We reached 24 of the 36 districts of the city of Santiago. We now work with last year, for instance, we transport about 713 million people, and 70% of the people we serve are the people who belong to the lower socioeconomic levels in our country. So we have the privilege and the honor to serve them, and we do it with 4.6 thousand employees in our own payroll, but also about 8,000 employees that perform in the companies that provide us with many services. We of course, when I mentioned that we transport all these people, the social role is absolutely set in our DNA. So we always are very committed to meet and fulfill the expectations of these passengers and communities. Now, regarding the construction, the construction role that we are now pushing, we have a very aggressive portfolio, and now we will be growing by 6% for next to 2023, and we will then grow to 25% of our network by 2027. We will then have 176 kilometers. And of course, we also have a long-term expansion plan where we are trying to grow to 215 kilometers, reaching 32 of the 36 districts of our city. Metro is a state-owned company. It became a corporation in the early 1990. It's supervised by the Financial Market Commission, and so it has all the regulations of a publicly traded company. We are U.S. bond issuers, so we have all the responsibilities. Not only the top management, but also we have our board with 7 members. That's a big overview of what Metro de Santiago is.
Thank you very much, Ruben. David.
Thank you, and thank you to Refinitiv for this wonderful webinar, and we're pleased to be your co-sponsor, and it's great to join Ruben and Juan Ignacio. LRN is 25 years old, and we exist for the purpose of helping people around the world do the right thing. We do that through education, a platform, and advice on how to put ethics and compliance at the center of responsible, profitable companies. We're a relatively small company. We're nearly 400 people, but I like to say that we pack a big punch because we work with nearly half of the Fortune 500 on their ethics and compliance program. And we have about 4,000 different education assets and experiences in every imaginable risk area, from corruption to harassment to competition, to data privacy and protection. We help our partner clients write codes of conduct that are powerful. We help them strategize about how to have the most effective compliance program, the best structure, and the initiatives that will reach the hearts and minds of their employees from the grassroots to boards of directors. So that's LRN in a nutshell.
Excellent. So as you can see, we have a very diverse industries topics to discuss today. So we will get a great perspective on what is happening in different industries. And my first questions to all of you is, we know that business operates in a very different context than 10, 20 years ago, no? We have now different definition of value creation. Companies went or moved from seeking profit for their shareholders only or mainly to consider a broader network of stakeholders that include customers, employees, and the whole society. What is your vision on this point, and what changes have you seen within your organizations? Juan Ignacio.
Okay. There's something that is that I heard from Ruben that is totally true. Is the social role that we play as companies too. And your question is really interesting, because it is true that we're not going to make a change according to how much money we return to our shareholders. In the context of the world today, we need to go much farther. So it is true that numbers and results are important. They may reflect a good leadership, but they are not sufficient to measure our company's success. So numbers are important. But when you ask me if we have been successful, we cannot just mention numbers. We need to see if we're accomplishing our purpose of serving really and making an impact on society. I mean, climate change will not be solved for how much money we return to our investors. Climate change, we will fight them in the cities with a clean energy, with transportation systems that are clean, with a healthcare system that can accompany the needs of the people. So we need to respond to the real needs of the society. So there is a big challenge, but no doubt that when we try to accomplish our targets and our purpose, we need to do so while we are building a culture of trust. Because, you know, these companies are run, this is not only technology, we're talking about people. So we need to take care about our people. We need to take care that they're safe, especially during these times, but also to have them engaged, motivated. And I think that you do that also by building trust, by having a good tone from the top, and also building a system in which, you know, the leadership is very consistent on doing the right things, and that's perhaps one of the, you know, compliance issues that we talk about the most. When we're trying to build a culture in a company, we need to really be focused on not only in the what we do, but how we do it, and that is really, really hard, and that's one of the biggest challenges. So we care not only about the results, the what, but also how we accomplish those results. We're complying with our purpose, and if we're meeting the people's expectations, the people that work with us, but also our customers.
Totally agree. Ruben?
I fully agree with Juan Ignacio. Nowadays, companies can no longer be managed with the single focus of shareholder returns. We must set ourselves the goal of contributing to a better quality of life for all people. and I think that maybe due to the people we serve, that's in Metro we have a deep root conviction. We try to become very good. That Metro needs to be a good corporate citizen. A good corporate citizen. So we need to go beyond the transportation services. We need to create shared value for our passengers, for our communities, for our workers. For instance, we adhere to some of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. For instance, in number 11, very clear in our case that for sustainable cities and communities, or number 7, affordable and clean energy. So we have produced and create a sustainability strategy that is based upon three pillars: community, environment, and workers. When we talk about communities, we try to foster and push the inclusion and urban insertion. In the case of the environment, of course, we are a low pollution operation, but not only that, but also we have an energy supply matrix based now 60% in non-conventional renewable energies. And we are pushing in order to lower in our CO2 emissions. Regarding now the pillar of our workers, we focus in our own, not only in our own workers, but also in those who provide the services in the collaborating companies. We foster an organizational culture based on collaboration, inclusion, quality of life, personal development, and we also go after the well-being, and even we look for the people get happiness during work. So we fully agree with that we cannot be focused singly in the shareholder returns.
Excellent, David. And I think that you can complement with some of what LRN is doing, but also your customers, no? Because you have a broader view of these aspects.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree more on the need for trust in all relationships with all stakeholders. That's more important today than it was 6 months ago even. I think a lot of whether companies are trusted by their people and their other stakeholders has been revealed by what the world has experienced in the pandemic. LRN has always thought of itself as a mission with a business attached to it. So we have always looked at society as a key stakeholder, and we believe we only succeed when we're helping our partners and their people do the right thing. So our focus is, if we do the right thing for our mission, if we truly help our partners inspire what we call principled performance, then we think our business results will follow from that. We've always conceived of our customers as partners. In fact, that's the language we use. We even have a set of partnership principles that underlie each of our commercial contracts. And we've been talking about the importance of culture and values and purpose for the last couple of decades. both internally in terms of how we want to become more significant in the world, and also from the point of view of helping our partners see that that is the route to their own sustainable success. In fact, we've done a lot of research that's very interesting that shows a strong connection between a good, purpose-driven, values-based culture and business outcomes like success in the marketplace, reputation, loyalty, trust, retention. So we're kind of talking about this trend in the corporate world is actually moving closer and closer to the point of view that LRN was founded on and has existed on for 25 years.
Yes, and I want to deep dive a bit more in this aspect now, and I think the three of you mentioned the importance of the culture. No, the culture is the way how we create value in our corporation. So maybe with best practices that you can share with the audience. It's very important, it's critical, the role of the leaders, and that's why we are talking with you. How does your companies foster an ethical culture to address all what we are been discussing today?
Well, if I may?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, I think here, as most of you mentioned it, the tone from the top is very critical, and we need consistency in our actions. And when we're building a culture of trust, and we have implemented a system of compliance in Siemens that it's a system that is much more than books and codes in the shelf. Many people think that, you know, when you have a rule code of conduct and you have a lot of papers and, you know, they're hanging on the walls and they show it to you and say, look, we have a very solid, robust compliance system. You know, that's the first step maybe, but we really need to have a compliance system that is live, that people breathe, you know, and that the compliance system and this culture of integrity is implemented and is embedded on the people by, you know, the way of convincement more than just putting a code in front of their table. So we have a system of preventing, detecting, and responding, but I feel that it's live and it's present in every single decision that we make. And I'm talking about business decisions. And perhaps we learned the hard way, but we have been implementing this system for many years now, and it has been very successful. And I feel very proud of what we have accomplished during these years. And at the end of the day, I think that if you ask one question before making every decision, you can get to a simple conclusion. So in every single decision, you need to ask yourself if you're doing the right thing or not. Because sometimes you're confronted to do the right thing or what's convenient. And if we are to decide between right and convenience, I would always get that option, do the right thing, even if it's not convenient. And you can ask that question in every single decision that you make, in HR topics, in compliance topics, in business topics. Are we really doing the right things? And sometimes you find out that doing the right things means, you know, that you're not going to win a contract. And but that's the right thing to do. So the context in the world in which we live, if we want to be sustainable, that's the kind of decision that we need to make. And at least for us, and our founder said it 175 years ago, that we won't sell the future of our company for a quick profit. And that's exactly the spirit of the system that we're trying to implement. That's from my side.
Ruben.
When Ignacio mentioned doing the right thing, I think I think that he's talking about values. What in those you believe is you in those you believe as a human being, and of course in a group of people that work together and make a company. It must be a set of values that you foster, you believe, and you respect. So when we call about ethics, you are talking also about the corporate value. So in our case, this is a central issue, and it's based mainly since we are a public company, a state-owned company, and also that we are very committed with the fact that we deliver a key service to those who need it most. We do not have an alternative to make it different. So how we do it? We have an ethic and compliance program in which we seek to strengthen our organizational culture. As I mentioned, it's based in the corporate values. It has a focus in social issues, and we try to connect it as part of the strategy of the company. This ethical compliance program is absolutely led by the top management, notwithstanding that we have a compliance officer that reports to the board. The board, of course, supervises the program performance on a regular basis. We have training and instruction policies, a lot of procedures against corruption, principles set in our code of conduct. That, I repeat, that the code of conduct is absolutely matched with our corporate values. Also, another important issue, we have a publicly accessible in our website. We have a whistleblower channel, and where all the complaints are attended with formality. We have deadlines and of course with confidentiality. So I will summarize this, that the ethics is part of our business strategy, since it fosters our corporate values that we have identified to develop our business.
Thank you. David.
So we have a very clear and straightforward approach to this, because LRN is a company whose purpose is to help people around the world do the right thing. And so if everything we are doing is serving that purpose, we are going to have both the right culture and the right outcome. I think the challenge for corporations today is to try to figure out all the ways to bring purpose alive in day-to-day behavior. Most companies have a strong stated purpose. The question is, have they done the hard work to translate that into behavior? Most companies have a strong set of values, but have they figured out the ways to activate those values in the way the company operates every day? So our whole focus in helping companies around the world do the right thing through their ethics and compliance programs, it's all about how do we make that effective? How do we make that tangible? All of our research work goes into the question of what really matters. in ethics and compliance? What really matters in education and training? What structures and strategies lead to effective outcomes for the company? What is it that you do to assess your culture and remedy the gaps in your culture so that your reality meets your aspirations? And so I would summarize it by saying that the hard work here is to translate aspirational goals, statements, and objectives into day-to-day leadership behavior and day-to-day activities in the company, and that's our focus.
Silvina, can I compliment?
Yes.
Can I compliment something a little bit? But it is you guys touched on a good topic, and I think I missed this point that it's not only, well, we do have a system like you guys have of preventing with a lot of training, detecting with whistleblowers, with tellers, with open channels so that people can speak up when they see something. So it's preventing, detecting, and responding. And perhaps responding is really hard because that's when you have to make decisions and you have to be fair, be clear, have a thorough investigation. You know, you need to have processes that makes a fair deal for all our employees and people that work with us. But there's also, and I think this is very critical, we talk too much about how to, be consistent. As leaders, we need to be consistent on how we assess them. If we're going to assess our people just by their results, there's a missing part because that's the what part. Now, we need to go to the how. So half and half. Half of the evaluation and the bonuses systems, and at least in Siemens, relates to what you bring to the table in terms of results. But the other half, and that you evaluate every single year to every single employee, is the how. So I don't care if you bring a lot of money to the table. I also care how you did it. Otherwise, it's just putting pressure to bring in money. Now, that's not a good message. You want people to be fairly treated. You want people with leadership. We need people with values. And you can have the world champion in bringing in money and businesses. But if that person cannot work with another people, he doesn't care about diversity, he doesn't care about inclusion, then we cannot work with that kind of people. So we need to evaluate and assess the how. And that's a point that I wanted to make because that's exactly what we're doing. And I think it's a great practice.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, and thank you for adding that. And I would also like to add that something that we are seeing is an ongoing convergence of compliance and sustainability, and I think you mentioned this before. We have a great article in our Refinitiv Perspective website, and I think we added in this platform, and I invite you to read more about this. But compliance and sustainability came from different aspects in the organizations, but at the end converge. They have many areas of common interest, such as third-party risk management, supply chain oversight, transparency, reputation, to address. Now, it's very important, the holistic approach of the companies to work against green crime and the connection there is with money laundering, corruption, and organized crime. So everything is in a single arena, and it's important to have this holistic view. As you all mentioned, it's not all about the results, and it's very important on how we achieve these results. So before moving forward, I think we are pretty much almost in the middle of the event. So I think it's a good opportunity to invite the audience to participate at this point. We have very short question, and I think we nurture the discussion with the audience opinion. So I hope in the screen are you seeing the question, the poll, which is COVID-19 brings a new market dynamic. Which of these changes impact more in your business model and require significant shift in your strategy? And the options we have is virtual working, hyper connectivity and digitalization, foreign trade and supply chain, sustainability focus, as I have just mentioned, or all of them, which is present a big challenge for the organizations. So while you answer the survey, maybe I can share an example of what happened in Refinitiv. For example, we cross our web access login data with Google geolocalization data. And what we discover is that even the case in some countries, people are going back to the office, and commuting levels are increasing. The remote access to our service remained very high, keeps from when the lockdowns happened at the beginning. So this is a very important indicator for us that we need to create more capabilities, more value in different ways, or in our mobile proposition. So there are many things that are changing that drive the business and the decision and the strategy, and that's why we are asking this question. So are we seeing now the results? So we have, let me expand. Oh, I don't have it. I'm so sorry. I have it here. So I have here. So virtual working is the highest note, and all of them also has important participations on the answer, but a lot of things are happening at the same time. And thank you very much to all for the contribution. So going back to the panel, do you think that the pandemic is an accelerator or a turning point for your companies and the industries you work in? And which are the main impacts? We shall discuss with the audience some of them, challenges and opportunities you are facing right now, and what you think are the significant changes that will last over time in your organizations. Juan.
Okay, so well, we have seen big challenges. Perhaps we have seen how vulnerable companies are when facing this situation. So it had hit us all. I think in every single industry we have seen that it's not us, it is our customers, it is our people. And so I think we have been challenged to deal with uncertainty. And on the other hand, we're realizing that what we do is critical also for the world. So we have seen a little bit of both. We have seen big challenges and big opportunities. I work in a company that needs to keep the world running in many aspects. I mean, we're talking about energy, we're talking about industry, the healthcare sector, the transportation. So. And we need to keep also focused on our people. They are the most important asset that we have in our company, so we need to take care of them. And for the first time, we're really forced to really listen what our people need and demand. And so we need to be responsible. Perhaps we learned a lot. And one of the biggest lessons that many companies faced, I would say, is that being responsible with your bottom line, being responsible with your financials is not only good for the shareholders, as we said in the beginning, it also guarantees that in times of difficulties like we're going through today, you can keep on running and you can keep the jobs. And today, keeping the job of our people is a huge, big contribution. We haven't let go anyone at Siemens because of the pandemic. And that is only possible because of what we have done in the past and being responsible with the management and the financials. So that's a big lesson that is not only a greedy thing to keep on the financial and the bottom line, but it's also being responsible for the company in the future. I think that one of the lessons learned, perhaps for us, is that in a more global scale, is that we cannot have all our factory footprint allocated in only 1 or 2 countries. We need to diversify more our footprint in factories, because when these things happen and you have a shutdown of one country, then you put at risk the whole supply chain of your company. And when you put at risk that, then you're risking hospitals, you're risking energy, you're risking transportation. So it's really relevant to think how we will set up our footprint globally in the near future. And I think that's a big lesson. And opportunities, I think that the biggest opportunity that we see is that digitalization is here to stay. Not only for the factories and implementing the Industry 4.0 and helping manufacturers to be more flexible, to guarantee more speed, to have a faster go-to-market, but also in the day-to-day life, we understand that digitalization is absolutely critical, and that it is here to stay, to the extent that, thanks to it, we have made a decision that permanently, 2 or 3 days a week, we're going to let our people work from home or from wherever they want to work. And that's permanently. We're not talking about to fight COVID. We're talking about from now on, and in the future in Siemens, you can work 3 days from home. That thanks to digitalization, and that's an opportunity that we see. And that is not only good for the quality of life for our people, but also think also about how good that is for society. Less cars running, less, you don't stress the transportation system, you pollute less, there's less congestions, and so there's so many positive things when you make these decisions that I cannot see that if it's not seeing it as an opportunity, and a big one.
I agree. Ruben.
Maybe if you allow me, I would like to recall what we have been living in Chile in the last maybe 1 year. So in Chile we have been facing 2 crises in a row. First, we in last October we faced a very hard social crisis, and now we have this COVID-19. In our case, in Metro de Santiago, if you review our sustainability report of last year, I invite you to do it in our website. We start 2019 with a very good news. We launched our line number 3, the most relevant launching commissioning in our history. We finished the most productive construction period of our history, and we were going for more. We had our plans to double the construction rate that we have just finished. So we were starting to fly and doubling our size. Then in October of last year, last October, we had a very severe crisis. where 118 of our 136 stations were damaged in different levels. We suffer destruction, vandalism, we suffer, and then we have, in that way, the quality of life of millions of people of the city of Santiago was affected. So we had to launch a very aggressive reconstruction program. So then that's what affected us, our process very severely. Then the board gave us special attributions to management to this urgent reconstruction. Then I connect with ethics and for this reconstruction program. So we had to launch a very big amount of cross-check systems in order to mitigate the risk. And so we were just taking off again, and then the pandemic came and forced us once more to rethink the way we operate. From one day to another, we were transporting 10% or 15% of the passengers that we were doing the day before. We have to launch special sanitation systems, educational campaigns, adjust staffing schemes to protect our workers, new health procedures, temperature, smelling tests, protecting items, and whatsoever. And then, of course, a large number of the supporting people, the support area people were switched to teleworking. So both crises in a row have faced us to be very flexible, that have forced us to be very flexible and to change and to adapt ourselves very quickly. Of course, we think of as well as I agree with Ignacio, many of these changes will remain for the future. We have learned to get closer and closer to our people, to our workers, to all our stakeholders, our communities. We launched an initiative, what we call it Dialogue for the Future, where we were to understand what was happening from them. You always all have been taught that the main task of the top management is always to communicate. Then we have learned that maybe before than communicate is listen. We have been adjusting all our processes to listen.
Very interesting. David.
David, I think
David, I can't hear. Yes, I can't hear. We can't hear you, David.
There we go.
Perfect.
I got a note earlier that it was important to mute when we weren't talking, and I followed that direction too well. What I was saying is that I agree very much on the point of listening, because this crisis confronted us with something we've never experienced. I think it was a test of culture and a test of alignment. I think it was also a test of business models. I think the changes are permanent, not that everything that has changed will be permanent, but in the white collar part of businesses, everywhere it's possible to do a job remotely and to work from home. I think that will become more and more a feature of business. I think in many major cities, the real estate savings from not having huge offices to accommodate 100% of our employees will be very tempting to many companies. I think removing the burden of commuting will be a benefit both to employees and to society. I think perhaps the most interesting and tempting part of what we've learned is that we potentially have more access to a worldwide market for talent than we thought. Because if it's not as important for everyone to be in an office, that means that for any position that doesn't need to be in an office, you can really go worldwide looking for the right person for the right job. For us at LRN, the COVID crisis has pushed more companies to think about what they can do online instead of in person. And providing learning and content and experience online is part of our business model. So we would never have wished this crisis on the world, but we needed to recognize that because of it, we needed to step up and do our job like never before. And one of the most interesting things about this environment for our company is that we did something unimaginable. We completed an acquisition yesterday of a company that's half our size. So it's quite a large acquisition in our context. And remarkably, we never met any of the people in person. We did it all by Zoom. We didn't visit offices. We didn't have dinners together. We weren't able to examine anything in person or test cultures in person. So we had to figure out how to do that by Zoom and online. And it was an incredible experience. And it was also something that in the beginning, we would have said, we will never do this. We will never be able to do this kind of transaction in an environment where we can't shake hands, where we can't break bread, where we can't see each other face to face and see offices and people. But we did that. And I think that kind of experience will change the company forever. And I think there's probably an example like that for every company.
Yes, very, very interesting what you are saying. No, it's totally a different word. Finally, I'd like to know your views on talent, which I think is the basis of all what we have discussed so far. Teleworking, we mentioned this, the need of immediate responses have brought new and more flexible, dynamic and horizontal working relationships. Also, we need new skills, develop new ways of working. How has your company been balancing business continuity with safety and a commitment to compliance? I think that we talk a bit about it, but I want to focus on the talent management within your organizations, just to share some best practices with our audience. Maybe we can start with Ruben this time.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that the pandemic has taught us a lot of things. And we have quite new challenges. For instance, how can you be closer to your teams, closer to your partners, despite the physical distance? That's a big challenge. So you need, of course, to be more flexible with the work schedules. You have to foster and promote a more horizontal leadership style, and we have been pushing that. We have been learning quite quickly, and of course sometimes we have made a lot of mistakes, and we try to be transparent when that happens, and make the amendments and the corrections as quickly as we can. What we try to do, we have been having regular virtual team meetings all over the organization. We have been pushing an initiative that's very interesting. It's personal phone call to all our people, just to ask them how they are getting on, how they are doing with all, how are they doing with the teleworking or whatever. Even our chairman of our board has been participating, and we call people and we learn from them, we listen to them, and then we ask, when we were all working together, physically together, did I call all my people? No. But in this situation, we have forced ourselves to do it, and we have more than 10% of all of our workers have received a phone call from our manager or a chairman or whatever. So, summarizing, I think that in these days, the talent that we are looking for has some issues. Flexibility, of course, horizontality, capacity to adapt to all the changes. Our environment is changing very, very, very fast. Connection to purpose. We try to enhance the connection to remain very connected to our social purpose. Integrity. We try to push that concept of being a good citizen, good people, and in Metro as a whole, as a good corporate citizen. That's the type of leadership that we are trying to promote and look for now. And of course, once again, listen. We must be very connected with all our stakeholders. That's the signal of our times, I guess.
Thank you, David.
Well, what's been interesting to me about this crisis time of the pandemic is that it struck barely a month in CEO. So this crisis has defined my entire tenure. And while I knew the company because I'd been around it for years as a partner and as an advisor, I was forced to try to learn the company and the people very quickly in this strange environment where no one was in the office. So I was forced to step up communication, both personally and with all colleagues in the company. Since we went remote in March, our leadership team has met daily, every single day, without fail. All the colleagues in the company have met in a virtual town hall every single week. I spend a few hours every weekend writing to everyone in the company about what happened that week and what we should be learning from our successes and our mistakes. And I feel like this crisis has really separated good companies with good cultures from the opposite. Because I feel like in this environment, we've actually been able to create greater intimacy. We're seeing into each other's lives as we never have before. We're seeing people in their homes. We're seeing their children. We're seeing their pets. We're seeing their spouses. Our people were having trouble occupying their children. We created a story time where I read a children's book on Zoom to the children of our company. And so it's forced a lot of creativity, and we've learned a lot about each other. We start every all-company meeting with 2 or 3 people from around the world talking each time about how's it going in their world? What's it like in their country? What's it like in their family? What's it like in their community? How is work going? And it's been an amazing experience of learning about our people that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And I hope we'll find a way to continue that when the crisis ends.
Yeah, I agree. Juan Ignacio, I think we miss you at the list.
Yes. Okay, well, I don't have much else to add. I think you guys have been very precise in what we're going through. I think that the company and we ourselves, when we have people that depend on us, we really need, in these times of uncertainty, try to provide clarity and uncertainty to as much as we can. Communication is very critical in these times, and I think we have never been more connected than now. I mean, we're connected all day, we can have face-to-face, and I completely agree that, you know, we get to see people in different situations. We're humans, and I'm here in my house. I have 4 kids. They're each one connected to a computer, talking to a teacher in remote classes. And, you know, I think we have realized that we're all going through exactly the same problems. And I think that this situation has given us the opportunity to really listen to what's going on. And I think that's key. To hear a lot, to take care of our people, to understand that the safety of our employees are the main thing, and try to facilitate their lives. Many people have asked if we can bring the computer that it was in the office to their homes, or providing a chair, or things that we never thought they were important. Today they're critical, and we need to take care of that. And secondly, I would say that we shouldn't stop providing our actual value proposition to our people. Our company has the value proposition on working in a challenging environment, or where you have professional development activities, and that you're working in a company with purpose. So we better stick to that and keep on telling them and making a reality that value proposition that we have. In these times of pandemic and crisis, I think the respect for our people, the focus, the initiative that we need, the trust, especially the trust in these days, is critical. At the end of the day, all the paperwork that we do daily, all the tools and regulations, they exist because we don't trust each other. And this situation has brought it to an instance in which we really need to trust. And I've enjoyed it so much, because I've came to the conclusion that the way we work today, it's a reflection that we can trust, and we must trust our people. So perhaps in the jobs of the future and the jobs now, we need very resilient people. We need people that with initiative, that challenges the status quo, that can stand up, more than a good executor on site. I think this situation has changed us all a little bit, and yeah, I tend to agree with what you guys said. People are definitely the most important asset that we have today, and we're a lot more than technology. We're a bunch of people trying to do the right thing over here. And perhaps one last thing that I think it's important, especially during this time, to put pressure on our people, saying that they have to comply with targets because the world is going crazy, so it's your responsibility to make better numbers, is totally unfair. So fairness in these times with our employees and managing talents is really critical. We cannot put all the harm of a pandemic on the shoulders of our people with the excuse that, you know, numbers and the world is going crazy and we need you to respond to that. That is also part of doing the right thing when we're in a crisis mode.
Of course. We are on time, but I think before wrapping up, I can pick one question from our audience. So thank you to all to keep with us 5 more minutes, but I think it's important. And the question one of the questions we receive is, how do you ensure focus in compliance standards and even in compliance investments in time of cost savings and economic challenges to the businesses? Any of you want to start?
At least on our side, that's not in the table. We will not put at risk the future of our company for a quick profit. It was said by our founder, 175 years old, 75 years old years ago, and we're going to comply with that. We will not reduce. Compliance is not the section of the company in which you can save money. This is like EHS. You know, you know people to be safe, and they work. You know, it could be like Ruben with the people in Metro. I bet that they're going to save in many aspects, but they will not put saving on EHS, on healthy and the security and safety of their people. We're not going to put in danger the integrity and the values of the company because it is an essential part of the company. So at least in our side, that is not under discussion. I'm really glad with that.
Ruben, David, anything to add?
I would add maybe that I think that the key point is sustainability. When you are committed with sustainability and you even think in the chance of making a short-term advantage, but going a part of your values or your corporate values, I think that is absolutely unsustainable. That's not sustainable. So my point is that again, compliance is absolutely connected with the business strategy. It's not in the opposite side. So if you follow our values, you will meet the compliance standards and you will meet the business targets as well in a sustainable way. Sustainability is the word for us in that makes all this be together in the same way.
So I'm going to say something that might sound odd for a company whose business benefits when other companies spend more on ethics and compliance. What I'm going to say is it is fundamentally not about money. It's fundamentally about whether ethics, compliance, values, purpose are built into the way a company operates. Ethics and compliance programs by themselves don't work. What makes them work is whether there's belief and focus from the board of directors, from the CEO, from the management team, all the way down to the grassroots, and that a certain way of behaving is part of what I call the machinery of the business. If you don't make your values part of the machinery of the business, then the machinery of the business will chew up your values.
Yes. So we need to finish the event today, and I want to thanks to our panelists. It was great to hear from them. I took some notes while you are talking, and what I highlight in terms of the role of the leader in the organization is, especially at these moments and always, is building trust by doing things well in a consistent basis, listen and connect our people, our community with the purpose. I hope I briefly take some notes of what you are saying and sharing with us. So thank you very much, you to be here. Thank you all the people in Latin America, in US, in Europe that connected today. We have a very brief survey at the end to get feedback on future events, and the recording of these sessions will be available on demand and in our website. So thank you all. Hope to see you next time, and have a nice day.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.